We're going to get started here again. So up next we have Chris from Big Fish, one of the obviously local studio. And I'm not sure what he's going to present, but I'm sure it'll be very, very interesting. So Chris, I'll let you take over here.
Thanks very much. All right. Thanks very much. So what I'm going to do today, I've got about 25 minutes. I'm just going to run through a little summary of about Big Fish. Big Fish can be a little bit of a confusing company looking at it from the outside in. We do a lot of things, and so I'm going to just lay the groundwork for Big Fish, talk a little bit about our games, talk also a little bit about mobile gaming and my personal involvement. I got involved in mobile in 2008, right when it started getting cool. The iPhone came out. If you were involved in mobile before that, God help you. But the App Store launched. I was involved with launching one of the first games on the App Store. And I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of what I've seen over the past 8 years, 8 or more years. And then really hopefully leave you some takeaways. I've got about a half dozen takeaways that hopefully you find valuable, which are things that we do within Big Fish that helps us be successful in the mobile space. All right. So Big Fish was founded in 2002. It has an impressive 14-year track record of steady growth and profitability. It's one of the very few companies actually that has survived all the perilous zigs and zags of the casual games industry as platforms rose and other platforms waned. As business models shifted, Big Fish has survived it. And I've been there about 3.5 years. And what really impresses me is how diversified a business it is, and how we have a lot of different things that we do, and we do most of them well. It's a large company, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, 600 employees, but we operate very nimbly. We have a very flat corporate structure. We really try and empower people and get out of their way. And we were private up until 2014 when we were acquired by Churchill Downs. We are only required to wear the big hats on Wednesdays, and we are basically a wholly owned subsidiary of them, and we operate very independently from them as well, which has been a great arrangement, a great partnership. And now we are continuing to grow. We are hiring, and I think, what I wanted to sort of step you through real quick is sort of how we're structured. Because if you go to our website, it can be a little bit confusing. So I'm going to press the big green button. There we go. So Big Fish employs a studio model, and I know this model has various companies over the years have applied this. We're pretty pleased with it because what it allows us to do is have very discrete business units within Big Fish that operate very independently, have their own unique strategies, leverage some centralized services and support groups, but really, can operate with a distinct set of corporate goals. So my job, I'm the general manager for Skyrocket Studios, which is the one in the upper right there. I'm just going to take you real quick through what each of these 6 studios do, what their charters are, how they operate, and hopefully give you just a bit of a feel for how diversified we are. Self-Aware Games, that's in the upper left. That was actually a studio that was acquired by Big Fish back in, I believe, 2012. They had been working on a casino game. They were very early in the mobile social casino space with a game called Carnadays Casino. We picked them up, grew them, turned their product into Big Fish Casino, and Big Fish Casino is one of the top 10 grossing games consistently. It's the #1 mobile social casino game in the world, and it's just this juggernaut. And that's what they do. That is an entire studio dedicated to that product and extending that product. Triton Studios is sort of an extension of all of our partnerships that we formed over the years in the premium business with a lot of developers in Eastern Europe. So Triton Studios works on free-to-play games, both casual and mid-core, working primarily with third-party developers who are located typically in Eastern Europe, Asia, relatively low cost, relatively high volume number of games, but they have a great model there where, again, they're sort of channeling the passion and creativity of these developers. Big Fish is not a publisher that sits back and says, we need this and we need that. Let's see who can go build it for us. We really go out and look for passion and creativity from our developers that we can channel, and that's what Triton Studios does. Skyrocket is a mix of first and second party development. So we have about 100 people just up the road here, literally half a mile up the Sound. in our main corporate headquarters, building first-party games, free-to-play mobile, and then we also have some very close second-party partnerships where we work with external developers who have a skill set or something that we don't have internally. And then Epic Venture in the bottom left, that is our bread and butter business. That's the premium, try before you buy PC and now mobile, primarily hidden object games that the company was built on over really the first 10 years of its existence. And that continues to be a very healthy, very profitable, very steady business. And again, most of the content is made in other places and sold through our website or through the App Store. This middle one on the bottom is pretty cool. I think very few people know it's actually Big Fish. 3 Minute Games made Lifeline, which was by far the most successful, top downloaded, top paid Apple Watch game that came out when the watch launched. It was a very cool sort of choose your own adventure text-based game, 6.5 million downloads, written up in Time magazine, hugely successful. And the way that was able to happen was this studio, 3 Minute Games, and you can kind of glean it from their name, was tasked with super small teams, super quick development, embrace new hardware, try and do something that's never been done before. And if it fails spectacularly, no harm, no foul. But if it works, it can work in a really big way. And that was a really exciting proof point for that studio as they kind of do this rapid prototyping style of development. Really trying to get a game from concept to the App Store in weeks, not even months. And then Lift-Up Labs is our latest studio, and they're focused on VR. They are located also down in Oakland in the same space as Selfware Games, and they just launched their first game, Galaxy Golf, which is doing pretty well for those of you that have VR headsets, and check that out. And these bottom two, that's actually the consumer-facing publisher brand, like that game is by 3 Minute Games. The other ones are more just ones we use internally to sort of keep making sense of ourselves. But they are not customer-facing publisher labels. So hopefully that helps as we move forward to give you a sense of what we do. And here's some of our games. So Big Fish Casino, despite being obviously a hugely successful game, what they're most proud of is their stat that they made 25 million friend connections within that game. And they're not shy about saying the reason they're number one is because it's really a social platform. It's a highly social, community-driven game where players interact with each other, form very meaningful relationships. So meaningful, in fact, that our community management team has been invited to a few weddings where people have met inside the game and formed obviously very meaningful relationships. And that game continues to do very well. That game was originally launched in 2010. So just to give you a sense of how long it's been out there in the market and how long that team's been iterating on it. And they've got exciting features coming out next month into next year, continuing to grow, continuing to do well. Gummy Drop, this was a game that came out of Triton Studios, relatively low-cost development, now consistently top 30 grossing game in the App Store. They're very proud of the fact that every day there's about 185 years worth of gameplay that happens inside Gummy Drop. If you add up all the time that their users are spending in that game, it's a casual match 3. It did a lot of really innovative things on top of the formula. And has done really well for us. It's been out for 2 years, and again, really just getting started. Fairway Solitaire and Fairway Solitaire Blast are the two in the upper right that come out of the studio that I have the pleasure of working with. And what's interesting with Fairway Solitaire is that game actually launched as a paid PC game about, 8 years ago. Was ported over to mobile as a paid mobile game, then became sort of a premium paid game with in-app currency, then became a true free-to-play game. Has continued to evolve, literally the exact same game, exact same user base. We've got users in there that have been in there for years. And this ties into sort of a theme that I'm going to touch on later, but this concept of not only diversification in what you're doing, but really having a very, very long-range view of what success looks like, right? Mobile gaming is no longer a sprint. It's no longer a race to the top of the free charts, and then it is a marathon. And particularly these these 3 products in the upper left really do represent long-standing success, but really long-standing investment and long-standing belief that those games can be successful. Fairway Solitaire, given that it's continuing to evolve, it's doubled its lifetime value in the past 12 months through ongoing iteration and product improvements just by having a team working with a customer base. Blast is sort of its sister product. It's a more arcadey style game. They've been doing some really cool stuff with tournaments and events, really pushing the concept of live ops from mid-core over into casual in a big way. Mystery Case Files is an example of our premium business. Just to give you some context for that, I mean, Big Fish has downloaded about 4 billion games across our PC and Mac ecosystem, and including mobile now. I think it's about 2.5 billion on PC and Mac, and then another 1.5 billion if you roll mobile into that. So just massive download numbers that come out of this premium business. It's all try before you buy, and we have about 4,000 SKUs that are out there, which is amazing to think about. But these games exist, people love them. They very rarely rise to the top of the free or the top of the grossing charts, but they sit out there doing very well for us. Lifeline I talked about already, and that's now becoming a franchise, and there's extensions to that. There's other Lifeline products that are out there and doing well. Cascade is a cool casual puzzle matching game, and Dungeon Boss is our first entry into mid-core. Both of the bottom two are being done with external developers out of Skyrocket Studios. And Dungeon Boss, despite being only our first at bat at mid-core, is a top 5 grossing non-branded RPG. And Cascade has this very unique sort of slots and matching mechanic. It's actually the same developer behind Slingo, and we continue to invest in that game. So these are kind of, there's other ones that are up and coming. We just launched a new one on Thursday that's doing pretty well. But when we think about our diversified portfolio, you can see that this represents a pretty wide swath of types of games, types of business models, and sort of approaches to development within our portfolio. All right, so now I'm going to take you back to 2008, and this is what I was doing in 2008. I was launching this game. This was Diner Dash on the iPhone 1, and just take a moment to soak this thing in, because we didn't even bother to change the aspect ratios on it, right? It had black bar. Those black bars are because we were like, we're just not going to deal with the fact that the screen's a different size than the PC. The pause button apparently was really important to us because we really wanted users to pause the game. I mean, it was just a straight port. It probably breaks every single Apple, UI UX guideline that they've ever published. And it was $9.99, and it was a top 10 downloaded game, and it was a top 10 grossing game for months. Right? So this is all you had to do in 2008 to be successful in mobile gaming. Now, granted, it was Diner Dash, which is arguably the second biggest casual IP next to Bejeweled. So we had that going for us. But there was no UA. There was no, I mean, it was just put it out there, get a little Apple love, and have a product that looked like this. And I remember I had one of my quarterly goals, because then we launched like Cooking Dash and Wedding Dash, and one of my quarterly goals, I kid you not, was to have 3 of the top 10 grossing games in the App Store. Because that seemed possible back then. I mean, why not? You just put these games out there, people download them, they make money. And how things have changed. You flash forward to today, this is Dungeon Boss. I mean, this is an incredibly advanced, very rich, 3D, graphically intensive game, massive amounts of back-end functionality. We've had this in the market for 14 months. And it is tough. I mean, it is tough going out there to sustain an audience, to keep the money rolling in, to keep, to engage with these users on an ongoing basis. And so, I think and this is not anything you guys don't already know, but what was becoming apparent to us is, the days of, oh my gosh, it's a koi pond in my pocket are long gone. The reality is that these mobile gamers today are incredibly savvy. They're incredibly demanding. They have infinite choice. There's infinite, infinite shelf space. Absolutely no cost to switch out of the game that they're in and go into a new one. The high-valued ones in the free-to-play space understand that they're high-valued. They know they're MVPs, right? They know that they're out there driving our businesses, and they have awareness around it. And the early days of sort of people fumbling their way into free-to-play and not really sure what they're spending money on are also long gone. And they want to make sure they're at the hottest nightclub in town, right? That's where these users want to be. They don't want to be playing the 4th most interesting or exciting or successful game in the App Store. And so because of that, you have an incredible concentration of revenue at the top. And you have a handful of games making tremendous amounts of money. The hardware continues to challenge us. It continues to advance in leaps and bounds, which is great for consumers, challenging for us because it requires us to rise and meet that demand and be pushing console quality graphics for free. I think the dev budgets are obviously going up into the multi-million-dollar, if not north of $10 million. And these things are no longer client applications, right? They're no longer just games. They are massively complex services that have incredibly intricate live operations and really require very intensive teams to drive and operate them on not just a daily or weekly basis, but on an hourly basis. So that's the challenge that's in front of us, and I think what we do on a daily basis at Big Fish that helps us as our guidepost in allowing us to continue to be successful is when we're sitting around in meetings, not nearly as well dressed as or attractive as these people, but forgive me, I got a premium Getty Images account last night and couldn't help myself. I think the woman out on the left actually knows what's going on, but the rest of them are just spouting off. We sit around and we say, well, what should we do? How are we going to be successful in this space? And we're all playing competitors' titles, and we're all looking at everything. And what cuts through all the clutter and what really is our guidepost is that none of these people in this room, and really none of us at Big Fish, should have a strong opinion or should really have a deep, entrenched perspective on what it is we should do or what it is create, because these people are in charge, right? These people are absolutely dictating what it is that we do, both in terms of new games we create, but also in terms of what we do with the games that we've got. The customer has never been more powerful than they are now. And I think one of the great things, though, that is helpful to us is we have never had more access to them, right? We have tremendous amounts of data, both quantitative and quantitative, on what it is that they want. We have perfect attribution in our business. I mean, I can't imagine running a business where you go put an ad in the newspaper and hope that it's doing something, right? We can go out and spend UA dollars on specific channels. We can track those users all the way through into our games. We can understand what they're spending. I mean, that's hugely beneficial. And we can get to know them, right? And they can get to know us. And that is actually, for players that invest deeply and are fiercely loyal to a game, that is expected now, that we're going to have a relationship with these customers. And we're really there to meet their needs. They're not all the same. Even within a single product, even within a very specific single product, you have this incredible swath of player type. You have this huge diversity of needs and wants. You have tremendous range of price sensitivity. And if you haven't made a free-to-play game and experienced that, that's an eye-opener, right? When you see the vast majority of your users not spending any money and then a high concentration of spend from a few. But you gotta be there for all of them, because they're all important, even the non-monetizers. And I think that what it requires is just a relentless commitment to them in understanding their needs and rising up to meet them. Because if you're not there for them, they will not be there for you. They will abandon your game as quickly as they possibly can, because there's so much high-quality choice out there. There's so many other great options for them that they can move on to. So what I'm going to do now is just really run through the meat of the presentation, so to speak, because I feel like I've set the stage, and hopefully leave you with a few takeaways on how Big Fish is charting a path to success, and maybe these will resonate for you in some way. So I talked about a diverse portfolio. Obviously, if you're a small 3-person development shop or more resource constrained than we are, this is hard to do. But we have intentionally chosen to be in a lot of different businesses and be out there addressing a lot of different customers, because things move fast and trends happen quickly, and it's very, very helpful that we can be out there betting big on a speculative new audience with a high budget free-to-play game, while also knowing that we've got rock steady businesses that continue to run profitably. And so this really allows us as well that when there are interesting new ideas or new trends, there's groups that can move over and address that. And I think I guess it's a luxury and a privilege of being a big company, but it's also one of the things that we view as the keys to our success. Team expertise and ownership, and I really want to stress the second part of this. So when I came to Big Fish, I sort of had this view that Big Fish was a publisher, and we paid all these developers to make games for us, and I sort of had that somewhat console-y kind of mindset because I'd done 10 years at LucasArts, may it rest in peace, and I sort of viewed like the publisher has the ideas, and the publishers knows what's what, and the developers just kind of crank out the content. Whether it's a first-party or second-party or third-party studio, that is absolutely not how we operate. We look for teams that have passion, that have capabilities, that have skills. We empower them, we support them, But ultimately, we give them ownership of that vision and direction. And if any of you ever worked for an indie developer or a small developer, and the publisher, you start getting that feeling that the publisher's taking over your project, there's no chance of success from there on forward. It just destroys the partnership. So even within the first-party studio within Skyrocket, something that we really stress is that we want the teams to be the ones who, very bottoms-up driven ideation process. Obviously lots of checks and balances along the way to make sure there's demand and make sure that there's a market opportunity for the game. But giving that team that sense of ownership. We've had first-party teams that have already built, launched, live ops, and decided to sunset games, and that was their decision. I mean, that was a decision based on the fact that they were looking at the metrics, they were looking at what they thought it was going to take, and they felt like they were better off moving on to something new. So really that sense of ownership, and that's amplified by the fact that Big Fish doesn't have like swarms of executives with C in their title and being in charge of creative and being in charge of all this stuff hovering around. We really look for the passion to come from the teams and the direction to come from the teams, and that allows these teams to move quickly. Now, I touched on knowing the customer's needs, and we've recently, within Skyrocket, invested heavily in some people who come with user experience backgrounds, and this is an area where you just cannot overinvest. You cannot work hard enough at this in every vector, in every aspect. And I think we all say, well, yeah, we're going to do some usability on that, and we'll get some customer feedback, or we did a survey, so we're all good. This just has to be an ongoing part of your mindset. And it's great, actually, because when the customer is in charge and you have tremendous amounts of data around it, gone are the days of, I mean, I can remember back at LucasArts, right? It was just like 15 guys at the time sitting around the table, and it was whoever could thump the table the loudest and yell, that was their idea that was going to win the day, or whoever was the senior-most person in the room. And so it really becomes very, very sort of objective, and it actually allows you to, all ideas are valuable and all ideas can be floated, and the customer will tell you, ultimately, if you've got something that is going to be successful or not. With respects to rapid iteration and live ops, I think there's probably people out there who think they're doing live ops because every weekend they turn something on or they've got something planned for Halloween. Live ops is hourly, right? Live ops is constant. You have to be thinking of it in hourly increments as far as how you're addressing your users, because they're checking into your game multiple times an hour, right? If you're doing it right. So you can't be thinking of your live ops cadence as something that you do every once in a while. And then rapid iteration, tying back into those customers' needs. It's really hard to look at a huge amount of data and draw conclusions from it. And so it is something where you want to be, this thing never ran, so I got 1 minute left, which is great because I only have 2 more bullet points. The main thing with rapid iteration is testing, right? So you can have huge amounts of data and you can look at it and say, I see a trend or I see an issue. But if you don't have the ability to A/B and multivariate test in your games, you are sitting in the mud. Like you have very little abilities to actually go out there and check what your audience really wants from you unless you can test it. And it's scary to make a big change against your entire user base. And if you're not making big changes, then you're not really doing live ops. Patience, and this again, maybe something that it's something that we have a luxury of, but we do, within our playbook. A lot of those games that I showed you have been live for a long time. A lot of them had peak revenue months last month. So it's really having that patience and that perseverance to know that if you've got something good, you can make it great, and sticking with it. And then going back to that objectivity and that discipline, really allowing the data and the customer needs to be your guidepost, having the discipline to know when something is not worth investing in anymore and moving on to something new. These are just 6 bullet points. I'll be around this afternoon if you want to come find me and ask questions, but I think I use my whole time without allowing for Q&A. So I don't know, but she's got the speakerphone.
Do we have time? One question. Uh-oh.
Oh, 2 questions then, super quickly.
2 quick questions.
I can probably hear you if you yell.
Oh, I think
If I pray a
we're
second.
streaming live.
Oh. Yes.
Testing cycles for trying different things. How long are those particular cycles?
Well, so, I think we like to have major new initiatives rolling out to customers, and so that might be a new feature, or we like to do that every kind of 4 to 6 weeks. But then within that, we've built functionality that allows us to run tests and learn things on a daily basis. So I would say, the teams kind of operate on these 4-week sprints with 2 weeks of QA and then get it live. So like a big client update with something meaningful is ideally every 6 weeks. Sometimes it runs a little bit longer, sometimes a little shorter, depending on the nature of the update. But then what we try to do is enable our games, through server functionality to be able to actually very quickly, someone can have an idea in the morning, and ideally we can have it out by the afternoon. So.
Thanks.
Cool. All right.
All right.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.